everyone. Nemus, Meta, anybody that I don't know that helped with the volunteering, getting this organized, fantastic. I'm really excited to have a B-Sides here and really just see the community come out and have some good talks. And one thing that I really wanted to stress is how informal I want this talk to be. I want it to be a little bit more conversational, and you'll find that my slides are not going to be terribly informational. I tend to want to focus more on the interaction, the talking, get questions, things like that, if there's any. This is a pretty basic talk, 101, on Kali Linux, which is the successor to Backtrack. Everybody know what Backtrack is? Pretty much, yeah, okay. Kali, anybody mess with Kali yet?
Download.
Oh, you download. All right, so, yeah. So I mean, pretty much, keep it informal, keep, and let's, just kind of talk. And like I said, the slides, there's one slide in here that has some information on it. The rest of it's just stuff to kind of help me move along, basically. So, Kali Linux, the most recent iteration of what used to be known as Backtrack. Backtrack was started by the guys with Offensive Security. I think it was sometime around 2008 was when the first iteration came out. Or no, before that, I apologize, closer to 2005. The most iterations of it were all based on Ubuntu. Backtrack version 5. Before this one was Ubuntu 10.4. And then when Kali Linux came out, they decided to kind of take it back to basics and start over. And what are the things that really they wanted to do with security-focused Linux distribution? And I mean, there are a couple of different players in that field. The NIST? There's a couple of different specific Linux distros for security and forensics work, things like that. But this Backtrack tends to be one of the most popular ones, and a lot of folks know it, obviously. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so Kali Linux is enterprise ready. Oh, and one other thing. A lot of this, the material that I'm going to try and go through is kind of pilfered from a talk that the offensive security guys did, Mutz and Dookie with HD from Rapid7. HD Moore is the inceptor of the Metasploit framework. So it's going to kind of focus around that, and that's kind of where I got a lot of my information from, and just community stuff. So their goal with Kali was to make it an enterprise-ready security distro, Linux distro. So what does that mean? I mean, it's basically, Backtrack has matured. Backtrack has become something completely different. In that the structure is, it kind of provides a way that you can interact it the way you want. So before it was all GNOME-based. Now it's it can have whatever Windows manager you want. You can build your own distros. Spin customized distros out of it. So that's kind of their thoughts on enterprise ready. You can really, if you wanted to deploy it to a team, you can customize different tool sets for that team, things like that. I'm not going to go into too much of that customization because there's pretty decent documentation online on that. But later on, if there's interest and time, I've got a couple of VMs I can spin up. I can show, what you would expect if you were booting into Kali the first time, if you're going to do an install, if you're just going to boot off ISO, that kind of thing. Like I said, Kali's rebuilt from scratch on a Debian-based system. There was a lot of a lot of debate that went back and forth in the offensive security team on whether they should stick with Ubuntu in their more recent iteration, or if they should move to a different distro for the base. They decided on Debian, I believe it's the experimental branch they decided on, or no, it's unstable, the unstable branch. Yeah. So so the reason they did that was basically to allow, there's a good stable build there, but they can selectively choose packages that can be a little bit more bleeding edge, as needed. So one of the other things that they by going back and rebuilding it from scratch, they were able to make the whole operating system FHS compliant, so there's no more /pentest directory, which is a big change. A lot of folks are used to just going and getting their tools from the /pentest, but now it's file system hierarchy standard, so that's kind of a big deal, if you're just at the command line, what you're doing. So, Backtrack is officially retired. So that's the official word. I mean, you go in the IRC, bang Backtrack, and pretty much everybody is, you should be posting this question in Kali-Linux. So it's officially retired, and I think it was Mutz that put it on the talk. He said, we prefer to think of Backtrack sitting on the beach somewhere sipping a margarita, not sitting in a corner somewhere, completely ignored and and forgotten. So thank you, Backtrack. Enjoy retirement. We all love to use you, but yeah, time to move on, I guess. One thing that's really big about that they tried to focus on with Kali is streaming updates, getting updates and packages without having to do a complete rebuild every time they come out with a new version of the distro. Kind of a rolling upgrade pattern. And by going to Debian, I guess that helped do that quite a bit. The packages and security updates all come from Debian with a 4-hour sync time. So the Kali repositories all sync to the Debian repositories every 4 hours to get those latest security patches and fixes. All your tools are going to come directly from the Kali development team in their distro or in their repositories. This allows for some long-term package support and maintenance of those really cool tools that they want to be able to offer. So it also streamlined their dev process quite a bit. Allows them to really come out and do a lot more quicker. And like I said, seamless upgrades to future releases. So, any questions, comments on that? No.
So I noticed it's a lot smaller now.
Yeah, the ISO.
Yeah.
I think it's 1.2.
Backtrack is like around 4 gigs.
Wow.
It's like 2.
Yeah, that could be right. I know the VM is still pretty big. If you download the VM, it's still a considerable size, but the straight ISO is pretty decent. So yeah, they probably tightened it up quite a bit by going back and rebuilding. So it's, like I said, enterprise ready, right? Bootstrap ISO customization builds that you can do. Automated installs. Like I said, if you have a team of security folks that you want to have, have the same experience to collaborate, you can automate the install, customize the desktop environment. One really cool thing that they focused on is ARM processor support. So, Backtrack on ARM procs, starting to see it on more diverse devices, things like that, mobility, really cool things. I don't know, I haven't seen exactly which platforms they've got it on. I know they've got notes on some Chromebook installs on the website, Galaxy Note, I think it is, a couple other things. So, you know, really neat getting it onto diverse platforms. One thing they really tried to focus on is working with the folks at Rapid7 on really building a binary package of the Metasploit framework and making that available and up to date. Normally, you know, Backtrack, it ran Metasploit great. You could do a MSF update and it would do an update directly from the Rapid7 folks. Now, all those updates are directly integrated into the Kali repositories. So you just do an apt-get update from the Kali repositories and you're getting, you know, updated versions of the Metasploit framework directly into it. The other really cool thing is Rapid7 has committed to fully supporting the Metasploit package on Kali Linux. So if you have a support contract for, say, Metasploit Pro, you can call them, and if you're running it on Kali Linux, you're in a fully supported environment, basically. They also, the binaries support, again, the Metasploit Pro, Metasploit Community Edition, which allows you access to that web GUI for just a different way to view the information. And of course, you know, the Metasploit console. So, yeah, that's pretty much it on Metasploit. Any big Metasploit users here? Cool folks. So, I mean, you know, I don't know if you guys get to, if you do the pro stuff or you're just down on the console level. I mean, I tend to play on the console because I don't have the pro version, but I did get the community version running for the demo if anybody wants to see that, the web interface. I mean, the pro version basically gives you access to these wizards and things like that. And I mean, I would imagine in a really large pen testing environment where you're collaborating on a team, it would be extremely, extremely helpful. You know, for basic one-off type things, the console's great. The community edition kind of gives you just another way to look at that data. You know, especially if you're looking at, you know, hundreds of hosts or services, it can kind of make it a little bit easier to figure out what's going on. So, yeah, and this is the one slide that has you know, some actual information on it that, you know, you can maybe take away if you want to get started. So the community support, docs.kali.org, forums.kali.org, IRC Freenode, Kali-Linux. And again, you know, Kali's all developed by the Offensive Security Group. They've got their online courses, pen testing with Backtrack. They also offer a you know, brick and mortar security class. They do it at Black Hat every year. That kind of tail ends into the Offensive Security Certified Professional. This is like one of those hot security certifications right now because it's that you know, it's a practical certification that's out there, and you actually have active pen tests involved with, you know, and cracking into machines as a requirement to getting the certification. So, and the guys with Offensive Security wrote the Metasploit handbook, and which is a published book, and then they also maintain the website, which I've just forgotten, but Metasploit Unlimited, I think, or something like that. So, really good resource if you're just getting into Metasploit and how to use it. So. Anybody ever hang out in like the IRC for Kali or Backtrack?
There's a lot of traffic.
There is a lot of traffic. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I guess you have to be a little careful sometimes about what you say in there. If you kind of just come in and, you know, don't read the docs or the facts or anything, and just go in and just, hey, I need some help. You know, some people are kind of like, well, you know, and they'll generally help you, but I mean, if you haven't done your homework ahead of time, some folks will kind of flame me a little. And it was kind of funny, yesterday somebody came in there and they were talking about maintaining access on 32-bit Windows 7 systems, and they started saying things about, well, I'm using the Chinese edition, and it's kind of setting up all these red flags, and the Kali Linux guys were like, well, this is more of like a Metasploit question, and so the person went over to Metasploit and started asking questions, and then they kick-banned them, and and then they came back into Kali and were like, why did I get banned? I'm just asking questions, and it's like, well, but you're asking kind of strange questions about maintaining access on Chinese-based systems, and it's kind of red flags, and it was this whole little thing that went back and forth, and they ended up letting them back into the Metasploit channel, but it was just kind of like just be careful sometimes what you're asking, because people started investigating the IPs that the person's traffic was originating from and saying, well, they're using a VPN that goes through in California. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but anyway. So, getting Kali Linux. Always use the official sources. They stress this quite a bit because because of the nature of the distro now, it could be very easily presented as an official Kali Linux from another source, and it looks and acts like Kali, but has maybe some malicious intent. So always get it from the official source. Always run SHA-1 checksums against the ISO that you download. All this information is well documented on the docs.kali.org. You can get it in like I said, an ISO VMware image. You can get ARM images. The ISO comes in a 32-bit and a 64-bit version. They have a minimal version, which is kind of like your starting point for building your own spin of it, basically. Or there's a GNOME-based ISO. I mean, does anybody see any real interest in building their own kind of version of it, or using their own Windows Manager?
I'm actually thinking about changing over Samurai WTF. So I don't know if anybody's played Samurai WTF, the web testing framework, but we've been based on Ubuntu, and a lot of the goals that Kali's accomplished have been goals on our team as well. So I'm thinking about converting over and doing a Samurai WTF based on Kali, as well as my new distribution, the Samurai STFU, the security testing framework for utilities. SCADA focused.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize we had such a celebrity. That's great. I should have mentioned your distro earlier. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's great. So yeah, I mean that gives you a good starting point. Why reinvent the wheel? Right? Just a couple of notes about using Kali in a potentially hostile network. I haven't done a lot of these sorts of things, but I'm like a CTF, those sorts of things. You really want to be sure that you're not running Kali on a VM workstation hypervisor on your main operating system, like so an example would be you've got a Windows 7 box that you've installed, VMware workstation on, and you boot into Kali, and you take that into a potentially hostile environment. I mean, obviously that exposes your host operating system as well as the Backtrack Linux. So just kind of a word of caution there. If you do want to go and play at the DC801 hackerspace, transistor hackerspace up in Salt Lake on the hostile network that they've got up there, just boot to an ISO of Kali, or do a fresh install of Kali on your laptop or something. Don't actually go in, or at least go in with the understanding that you're exposing that host operating system as well. The caveat some people don't think about when you're booting off an ISO is obviously it doesn't save any of your preferences, any of your settings, things like that. So persistent install to the local hardware is preferred if you have that option. Dual boot, whatever. and it does fairly well, as you'd expect with a modern Linux OS, handling dual booting with other non-free operating systems. Yes, sir.
Is there a persistent version of thru?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I mean, well,
Getting a persistent in Backtrack 5 or 2, 3.
you persistent like on a USB.
Yeah, USB was really spotty.
You know, I haven't done that.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I've just done local installs. So, I mean, my experience with persistence, you know, is it's gotten a lot better in more modern versions of Linux, especially since like Ubuntu 10.4. It's gotten a lot better. So you know, I don't recall off the top of my head if on the docs site they've got a tutorial on how to set that up, but I'd imagine it'd be fairly.
There is. I'm pretty sure
There is? Okay. So yeah.
And
So,
one other thing you can try doing is actually just going through the installation and installing it to a USB drive. And actually installing your bootloader on the USB drive itself. In Ubuntu, I've actually had a lot better luck than doing the other method. So Ubuntu has two. The main method for Ubuntu basically moves the ISO over the USB key, and it runs as a live environment, and then it sets up a separate partition that it does for persistence. That has always sucked. Because you're running the ISO, it has to use some of the RAM space to be able to carve that out to that persistent drive that mirrors back down to the USB drive. But if you actually do a raw install to the USB drive itself, just get a fast USB drive, make sure you have a good fast one. That actually works really, really well.
I'll just try that. I hadn't thought about that. Thanks.
that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great idea. So, you know, this is basically my slide to transition into the demo. Did you have a question? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Like I said, I've got a couple things set up to do demo. We can boot to a live ISO, go through the install process if there's any interest in that. I can do a quick tour and you know, maybe show you some you know, getting access to Metasploit. Like I said, I've got the Metasploit community edition set up if anybody wants to see that as well. So. All right, so yeah, danger, right? I have mixed luck with demos, so bear with me. Oh, and just slide credits, creative comments, most of those pictures.
Jeremy, we got seats over here. So what are you demoing?
Looks like low
It's Cavalry. It was last summer. So this I've got sorry, the display doesn't work when I do higher resolution over here. So this I've got just a single proc box to do a boot from the Kali Linux ISO. So I've got just the ISO I grabbed there. So this is what you'd expect to see if you had just downloaded the ISO, thrown it on a flash drive, and we're booting into it the first time. You got this. Looks like I grabbed a 64-bit or no 32-bit. But you've got a live option, install, graphical install, and forensics mode. So you can access all those forensic tools and not interfere with the local hardware. Of course, there are other ways to do that, but that's one of the options. So, just go ahead. I know there's a way to modify that. Okay, well, you can kind of see up there, we've got a kind of a modified GNOME shell interface. It's kind of a GNOME, what are they calling it, fallback, or kind of a hybrid GNOME 2, GNOME 3 interface. But this is what you'd see. Kind of come up, you've got a standard setup, and those who've used Backtrack, Kali's the same way. It's designed to be run as root in this sort of environment. So you just boot right into access as the root user. My personal recommendation, if you're going to be using it as a day-to-day version of Linux, which this actually does a lot better as, in my experience, run a set up a separate user and follow standard Linux best practices of having a day-to-day non-root user as your primary user. So we're in there as root right now. One thing they've done, made it nice and easy, giving you a Kali Linux option right from the applications menu, and you've got your top 10 security tools right there. So the usual suspects all right there, and of course all the other fun tools are here too. But if you're playing in the pen testing environment, these are all tools that either you would want to be familiar with or are already familiar with, that kind of thing. So, any questions or anything? It seems pretty straightforward, but I mean, there's a bunch of fun stuff on there. One of the first things I would also recommend, if you do have, I'm not doing networking here, but if you do have network access, go ahead and do an apt-get update, apt-get disk upgrade. That will, of course, give you the latest, greatest install and refresh all your tools, get all the updates, things like that. So, but you can see I'm running just booting off the ISO. There's an older version. Nice thing though is like database. So they've got kind of the database backend was always kind of a challenge, getting it, booting fresh and getting a configured database access from Metasploit to maintain all your records and things like that for larger environments. They've kind of got that real squared away now. Start up Postgres. Start up the Metasploit service. It goes through, configs up everything for the database, and then you can go back into the console. And on the first run, it'll generally go through and create the database tables and everything. Generally, it'll take a little bit longer to come up, but then you'll notice when I first went in and I did a DB_status, it said not connected, right? So now, when I do that, you'll see the database will have a connected status, which is pretty good. So. There you go. So I know some, getting that initial setup was sometimes a little difficult. So and obviously since this is a boot from an ISO, I don't have any data in there or anything yet. But now you're ready to go ahead and start doing, maybe some not exploitation, some exploration and some enumeration of whatever systems you're looking at. So. Does anybody have any interest in seeing the community edition of Metasploit, the web GUI kind of to the console?
Why not?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Please.
All right, so. So I've got, I'm running Kali on my local laptop here. And just to maintain that persistence, since I booted off the ISO. The community edition does require registration to get a license key. So that's why I did it this way. Same thing though, start Postgres, start the Metasploit service. Go to the console. And to make it real easy for you, let's just GoPro. And what this will do is will launch a Firefox browser and automatically loop back to the local host, connect up to the web interface. First time, it'll ask you to establish a username and password for the admin user, and then it'll also ask you for your license, which you got to go out to Rapid7 to the community site and just, like I said, register. It'll give you a serial, you pop it in. Let's see what it comes up here. Look at that. Again, I've already done that process, but this kind of gives you an idea. Now, like I said, these wizards, those are all for the full pro version. And like I said, the community edition just really, in my opinion, for the sysadmin that wants to just do local security assessments on their local systems, obviously systems that you have authorization to do that on. That kind of goes without saying, right, in this crowd. But you want to just kind of go out and maybe take a look at those systems that your regular security software has told you that there's a potential exploit for. So you want to go in and see, is there actually an exploit for that? Is that really a risk that I want to bring to the attention of my organization? That's where this kind of just gives you another way to look at that data. So you can go in and you can pull this information through the console, but maybe if you're looking at a couple hundred hosts, it might be a little bit easier to look at it through a web interface. Your larger pen testing shop, the person that they do this on a day-to-day basis, you're probably going to want to opt to go to the pro version and be able to utilize things like these wizards at the top and things like that. But it comes with like a default project. One of the things that you probably want to do first is set up a new project. But then you can kind of go in here. You can scan, import. You can pull in info from Nexpose, which is another Rapid7 product. Similar, but of course very different than like a Nessus or an OpenBoss, but basically like that. A vulnerability assessment scanner that kind of goes out and takes a look at systems and what ports are open and potentially fingerprinting what version of SSH is running on that box and if there are any known issues with that. But you can just you do a scan and you can put in your target IP range. There's a plethora of other options that you can go into. Like I said, I haven't messed with this too much, but it's just another way to look at that data. And if you had gone through the console and populated your database with hosts and services that you wanted to look at, they're going to show up in here under your projects. Under the overview, you'll have all those hosts in your database available. I mean, it's hitting that same database on the local machine. So obviously all that data is going to be available here where you can go in and just look at it a different way. One thing that the community edition does not do that the pro version does is you can kind of go into the host and the service and actually run exploits directly through the web interface on those individual services. So I mean, if you want the web GUI, again, pay for it so that you can get that full experience. Otherwise, you're back at the console like the rest of us poor folks. So, any questions? Anything on here that you want to see? And the community edition is free, like I said, with the registration. So you just have to give Rapid7 your email address. And they seem like pretty good folks.
You
Yes, they do. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I mean, to their defense, they seem to be doing a pretty decent job of keeping the Metasploit framework available, free. You know, and the same tools that are available in the Pro Edition are available in the Metasploit framework free edition, just not with this fancy web interface. So.
I got a question. Has anyone ever used Rapid7 for a pen test? How were they?
For the normal scanning, or are you actually talking about the Metasploit Pro?
No, but like using Rapid7.
Oh,
to do a
to do
pen
the
test.
pen
Oh, no, I never used a professional services.
All right.
I know they're hiring a lot. I mean, they tend to be. I see them out there on the boards a lot. The professional services, so you know, for people that know what they're doing.
Their sales team is getting not as annoying.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
improving over time. In fact, it's been at least 2 years since I've had one of their sales team actually offer me drugs, so.
Okay. Is that good or bad? That's funny. Yeah, I talked to one of their sales guys not that long ago, and he seemed like an okay guy. He was new there though, so who knows? Yeah. Still trying to get his legs. So. Cool. Well, I've got a few extra minutes if people want to. Yes, sir.
Has anyone played with the Raspberry Pi version?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. That I haven't, but awesome.
So
I've heard it runs
on
great.
a Raspberry Pi is really cool. I fired it up, and then I stuck it in the drawer next to my Arduino, and you know, all the other things I buy I don't touch. I was thinking that would be actually a cool use for it, because otherwise it's just holding down the Arduino in the drawer.
Right. Well, and I've heard that it runs very well on Raspberry Pi, actually. You know, the Kali, there's instructions on the Kali website, the docs site, on a Raspberry Pi build. So definitely check it out and let me know, because.
I downloaded it, seeded it for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So. Cool. Well, no other questions or anything. I'm done. I've got a couple extra minutes. If,